Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and as many of you have been following along with Speedy as we progress through the journey to get this standard 10 back on the road and MOT worthy, you'll know that, well, we found things that we weren't quite expecting to find when we pulled up the carpets, and the floors at the back, unlike the front, were a little bit crusty, which meant that they needed tackling. Now here's the thing about a standard 10. Unlike the Morris Minor, which I've been very used to and I've always been spoilt for panels, we can't really get much for this. And so we're a little bit stuck. So I was talking to my friends at work and I said to Ed, I said, what are we going to do? And Ed said, it's simple, isn't it? He said, we're going to cut that section out, we're going to make a new panel and we're going to weld it in. And I thought, that sounds like one of the most complicated things I've ever heard. But I also wanted to know how he was going to know how to draw the panel, how to match the floor and all the bits in between. So in this video today, you're not really going to see that much of me because today's video is pretty much all about Ed because it's so important to share expertise and how people do things. And I wanted you to see how we're doing this because if you drive a car, just like me, that is a wee bit obsolete and you're trying to do this, this might give you some good insight into A, how long the process is going to take, B, some idea on all the elements involved so you can get an accurate costing on it, and C, if you're going to do this yourself, you've got a pretty good starting point for how Ed's done it. And remember, he is an expert in his craft. So if there's anyone that I would ask to do this, it would be Ed a million times over. So Ed, take it away and tell us where we're going to start.
Right guys, so we're going to have a look at the floors of the standard, which has been passed on to me as ADO Restoration's bodywork guy, shall we say. This really doesn't faze me at all. Unfortunately, we can't get any panels, which would have made our lives a lot easier. However, they are relatively simple things to construct. Very flat, with just these sort of stiffening ribs, just to give everything a little bit of strength, which isn't a problem. We can swage those in to the panel that we're going to make. First thoughts are to create a triangle piece which will go alongside this swage line here and into this corner. So we'll replace essentially this back section, getting rid of all of these previous repairs and little holes that we can see. Originally we can see here the panel would have lapped up onto the inner sill and been spot welded across here. So what we'll do when we've cut this out, we'll replace this section of the inner sill which has gone through in these points here, which is just a flat piece. So we can weld that up first, get our floor pan triangle made with our little lip on the edge, and then we can plug weld that through into the new metal, giving us the repair that we require. Essentially it's going to be the same on the other side. Even though this looks a lot worse, it's relatively the same repair. As you can see, all the rot is going to be in this bottom half of the floor pan. So we can just make basically two identical handed floor repairs. So I'm going to template those up, make myself a cardboard template and then cut it out some sheet steel and weld them in. So we've got some heavy paper or thin card, whatever's available to you is what I use, and we've just sort of laid it in to the floor here, in roughly the shape that we're going to cut out. I've just sort of roughly marked on the swages and I've just left myself a note that there needs to be a tab up the side here, so we can use this to sort of cut out our steel, rough out the shape, and what I'll do is we'll cut this out, we'll offer up the new piece and see how it fits, and then we can mark on our swage lines. There is a stiffener piece that runs just through the centre of these swages here, just along here, which we can fabricate up as well and spot weld on the underside before we weld it in. And I'll do it all from the top because it's easier welding from the top than it is laying underneath and letting all the weld spatter fall in your eyes. Well, not eyes, because I'll be wearing a mask. But yeah, basically, let's get this cut out and we'll rough up a panel and we'll see where we're at.
Now, a lot of you will have watched that really small reel that I put out where we started digging away at the floors. And I said in that, and I've kind of missed that on this, is that there was sound deadening glued down to the floor, which really did kind of might make this a lot worse than it could have been. If these floors had just been bare, I don't think they would have rotted out quite as much. But it's just one of those things, isn't it? I mean, look, the car's 70 years old, for goodness sake.
Right, so we've got the floor pan out, and that's what we've cut out. So I just cut round where that spring hanger was because I didn't want to cut something I shouldn't. And then I can grind that off. Now I've got a bit more visibility, I can grind that off to where I want it. You can see the inner sill here, the remnants of the tab off the edge of the floor, which came off there. So we can vac out all the old rot from there, and it looks like it's had sills, outer sills in the past, this car, so we're not worried about those. We'll paint all inside before we weld it back together, just to sort of help with any future rot issues that may occur if you leave something bare metal. So yeah, pretty straightforward. We'll make up our fresh piece from our template, we'll drop that in, we'll scribe round the new piece. Now we've kind of roughed it out, we'll scribe around the new piece so we know where to do our final trimming. We'll repair this inner sill first, and then we can weld our floor pan in.
Okay, so Ed drew this panel based on what he had in the car, and then he cut the panel out, the old rotten piece, and now we're staring down on a fresh sheet of metal. Ed, walk us through this process. How do we get from a piece of paper to a new panel?
So yes, as you said, that was the panel that we made, the template for the panel that we made in the car. So all I've done is I've put that on my sheet of steel. I've roughly drawn round it, done it ever so slightly bigger, because it's always better to do it slightly bigger because it's easier to trim it down than either start again or weld another bit on if you need to. So it's going to be slightly oversized. These marks here were the swages that were in the floor, in the original floor pan. So we're going to replicate those into this fresh piece, which also will shrink it ever so slightly because we're creating a dip. So we just want to make it just a little bit bigger than, like I say, than what we really wanted, just to allow for a little bit of shrinkage. But we've cut it out slightly smaller than the template in the car as well. So we've got enough room for any sort of minor mistakes that we might make. So we're just going to get our trusty gilbos out, and we're going to snip this out. We'll mark on where we want these, and we'll roll it through the bead roller and get those put in. Fold a tab on the end, and then we're going to have to use a shrinker stretcher, which I will show you later, to get a bit of curvature in it where it needs to be.
Here's just a really quick video showing you Ed drawing the shape out on the metal and then cutting it out. Because I think sometimes for people that have never done this before, it can be quite hard to get your head around the fact that it is so raw and you have to go right back to basics and you are just dealing with sheet metal, drawing it, sculpting it, crafting it. It's more than just creating a panel. I don't know what you think, but I personally think this is almost like art. It's like sculpture. It goes beyond just creating a panel. And I'm always in awe of the people that can do this because there is so much involved in it and it's such a skill and a craft.
Right, so we've cut out our piece and we've marked on where our tab's going to be. And if you remember, I mentioned this is where we're going to plug weld that into the inner sill piece.
Yeah.
So this is the little folder that we have here. Mm-hmm. It's called a box pan folder because you can remove these plates. So if you fold something up the side, you can slide it in to then fold and make a box or a pan. So if you want to have a go at this.
Yeah, go on
Yeah.
then. What am I doing?
So you can see where we've marked that line on there. So if
Yeah.
you just slide that in there,
Yeah.
and then this lever here will lower this edge. So if you can gently sort of lower that down and just line it up with that line.
Honestly, I don't think I've felt so much pressure since I sat an exam. Right, okay. That looks about bob on, doesn't it?
Yeah, so if we just get that, yeah, so if you pull that lever down, that'll clamp it in
I'm
place.
just getting nervous.
Oh, hang on.
Oh.
It's just slid, yeah.
That's bang. Oh.
So if right, you pull that lever down and that'll clamp it in place. Push it right down, that's it. And then under here, if you just grab that lever there and pull that, that'll fold it. That's it.
It's technology in action. We're taking it to about what?
About 90 degrees.
How do you know when that is?
Till it looks about right, yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit more maybe.
Because we can always bend it back, can't we?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Oh, it's 2 levers.
There's 2 levers.
Sorry, we're not all as strong as you, Ed.
That's it.
Right, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you hang on to that and lift this lever on the side here again, that'll just slide out.
Well, we look at that. Look at that.
There we go, we've got our little folded edge.
Made a valuable contribution to the car of some description. But I guess the real deal is it's the swathes, isn't it?
Yeah, the swage is in there, yeah.
And how are you going to approach that?
Well, what I want to do is I want to drop this in. We've got a slight curve to put on here, which I'll show you next, this is our shrinker stretcher.
Okay.
So we'll put the curve on here and then we can drop it into the car and then we can just mark on, because one of them goes up the sort of the back edge there. So we can mark where we're going to have that so we get it in the right place. We can mark the other 2 on and then we can roll those in a bead roller, and I'll show you that next. So we've got this curve to put on the back of this panel. So I've just got a contour gauge here, which this was a very cheap one from Aldi, but it works just as you need it to. Which you press onto here, which gives us the curve that we need to copy. So when we apply this to the tab here that we folded, we know, how much to shrink there to give us the curve that we need. So I'm going to show you that next. So if we pop this in the shrinker here, basically what happens is when you press this lever on the floor, the jaws will come together and squeeze. So when you put this sheet in here and press down, it'll shrink the metal. And as you can see, it starts to curve the edge. So all we're going to do is we're going to keep shrinking that until it matches the profile that we've just taken on the contour gauge. So we've shrunk our tab there to get the curve that we want, which matches our contour gauge there. So basically all we need to do next, I've got the anvil here, so we're just going to give that a little bit of help further down the line just to get the curve that we want. Because we don't have a tab at the other end to fold it, so we're just going to give that a bit of shape over the anvil there just to give us the start of the shape that we need. So we'll try this in the car and we'll mark on our swage lines and we'll run it through the bead roller. Okay, so we've marked on from the car the reference point as to where the swage is going to be. So I've just put some masking tape around here of the shape that I want to achieve. And I'm just going to finish that off. I'm just going to bridge that just so that we don't lose the shape of it when we peel it off. And then I'm going to transfer this. That's not what I wanted to happen. transfer this onto the new panel here. And then I can mark on the new panel where we want the swage line to be. And that will give us an idea of where we want to run our bead roller, which will give us that shape. Now sadly I don't have the exact same size as the one we have there, but what I propose is we do is we get the initial shape by rolling that through, and then I've got some dollies which are actually the perfect shape in the panel, which we can then hammer down that line that we make to give us the finished effect.
Whilst Ed is getting on with that panel, Paul is down here. Paul, what are you doing?
I'm getting the brakes ready. So I've taken the old wheel cylinders off.
Yep.
Here is the remains of it.
Lovely.
I've cleaned the back plate up.
Yeah.
I took the hub off because one of the studs was loose in the hub, so I've tacked that back on so that it can, so we can put the wheel on without the stud spinning round. And so I've got a sham for the shoes, clean up the return springs, and then fit it all up. So I've cleaned the brake drum up, but that's not here at the moment, and then go and do the other side. So hopefully we should have it all back together tonight before we go to the pub.
Look, I know some of you are going to think I've wimped out not doing this all myself, but okay, we are to the wire. We are now on the weekend and we only have 2 more working days. We've got Monday and Tuesday and we've got all our proper work to do during the day. So really, we've only got 2 evenings left to get everything done. So Paul is just so lovely helping out with this. I can't thank him and Ed enough. They've just been brilliant. And also turning their hands to a car that they've never really touched before, which I always think is a really good litmus test of someone's talent. And both of them have just taken to it like a duck to water. Personally, I've woken up a lot at 3 AM and thought, oh, what are we doing? But it's okay. Anyway, as you will have seen in the last braking video, things were really sketchy, especially on this side, but we knew we needed to change the brakes across the axle. Now, the shoes were easy enough to come by, right? I went to a place called Saftec in Brake House the other day on my day off. What a great thing to be doing. And I called them before. I called them at 2 o'clock and the traffic was so bad coming back from the hairdressers that I didn't get there for 45 minutes. I walked in, 2:45, and they were like, yeah, so we're not going to need to take these overnight. We actually have a set on the shelf. You can take those away with you. I thought, who on earth has a set of shoes for a standard 10 on the shelf? I thought, no, don't ask questions. Just take these shoes and go. I was out the door by 3 o'clock and I was home by 3:30. Now, for me, that is just such great service. The guy knew what the car was. It was well priced. I think I paid £57. It wasn't bad at all. And the only thing that was left to find were the wheel cylinders. Now, I was in a bit of a quandary because I was looking at it on eBay and it said they weren't going to arrive, and I was toying with loads and loads of different options and I didn't know what I was going to do. Anyway, I put out the last braking video and I sat down, I ate my tea, read my emails, and I got an email from a man called Paul at PowerTrack. Now, I've heard of people using PowerTrack before, but I've never used them myself, and I didn't really know if they'd have it, and I've had so many no's along the way from people that I thought I'm going to have to try and ring the Standard Motor Club tomorrow, it's going to be a faff. And Paul said, Steph, I have got those wheel cylinders, do you want the set? I thought, blimey. I can't believe, A, that someone's watched this video and replied so quickly, and B, that they've got them in stock. So anyway, ta-da! They have arrived already. So we spoke after the video. I rang the next morning at 9, because Paul said we're open at 9, just give us a call. Called him up, I explained the situation. He was so diligent, he was like, right, it's definitely an early car, isn't it? We had a good chit chat. We got very geeky about old cars and stuff like that. And he sent them out and he said they'll be there for Monday, and they've arrived today, which has meant we've managed to get this done, and it is such a blessing. We're so lucky to have these here with us. So if you're watching this, PowerTrack team, thank you so much, because I don't know who's posted them. If you need brakes for anything, they do brake shoes, they do wheel cylinders, they do all sorts, but they cover loads of niche stuff that isn't really available. So yeah, they do like your MGs, your Morris Minors and all the rest of it. But if you're driving stuff like old Vauxhalls, pre-war cars, they've got a lot of that stuff. You have to ring up. That is the one thing I will say. They don't have an online directory, but they're pretty quick to answer the phone and stuff. So anyway, that's just a bit of a shout out, because it's so important for us to talk about the suppliers we use and not gatekeep who they are. Because if we all share the good suppliers and the good people that we use, our community just becomes stronger. Anyway, I've distracted you all for long enough. I've also distracted Paul. We'll let him crack on with that, and we'll go and see what Ed's doing. As somebody who's been around old cars for a long time, I've never seen this done before. And so realistically, I wanted to let you all watch how it's done as well. Because the thing is so many of us drive classic cars where panels are so freely available that we never get to see stuff like this in action. What I term as that real work, where people have to create stuff from absolutely nothing. And therefore, I really wanted to show you how much work went into it. Although, look, I have sped this bit up because that went on quite well.
So we've got our initial shape there with the bead roller, and then we're just using this on a sandbag just to open it out to the right width as per the original floor pan. So we're just going to hammer all the way down here, and then we can put our bead roller through these as well and do the same thing, and then we're pretty much there with it. So we've just done our first swage there. We've just hammered it out to the right width, and as you can see, that's just given us, compared to like this side, how much strength that's added to that floor pan. It's quite remarkable, really. So once we've got these in, and then there's a piece, a stiffener piece to weld onto the bottom as well, that'll give us all the strength we need back into this piece of floor pan before we weld it back into the car.
Whilst Ed was doing other more important jobs, it was then my job to clean out the inside of this sill. Now, do you know what? A lot of this damage on the inside of the sill would have been prevented if somebody had painted inside the panel before they put it on. So please, if you're doing that, make sure you do. Now, if you're wondering what the final reveal looks like, here it is before we put all the paint on. Now, as you can see, things are looking far more rosy than they did when we first pulled up those carpets. Bravo, Ed. Bravo. Blaine, our apprentice, you have done some incredible work here.
So it is 11:25 on Wednesday night, soon to be Thursday morning, when this car needs to be driving down to the NEC. We've been working really hard. We're very, very close. We've just got the rear springs to finish off, and then everything that we wanted to achieve has been achieved. The reason we haven't, well, we got so quite well, I was going to say we haven't hit the deadline. We will hit the deadline, but the reason we got so close to the deadline is the floors just took a little bit longer than we first anticipated. You may have seen on the previous videos we were making up some pretty sizable repair sections, and it was both sides. This side had an inner sill section that we had to fabricate as well. The other side needed some additional bits to the original panel that we made, so it ended up just being that little bit more than we wanted it to be. But the metal's in, it's painted, it's got some zinc primer on it. We've painted the underside, and to get it to its MOT-able state, we're there. Ideally, it wants the underside of the car properly, rust-proofing and protecting for any sort of rain or dare I say, winter miles that may fall on the car. But otherwise, it's all solid. It's got all the spring hangers were okay when we got down to them, because I was a little bit worried about those, but they were okay. Yeah, that's about it really. We're there. We're gonna see you at the NEC.
Okay, we're at the end of the video and wow, we are all so tired, but I just want to say a massive thank you to Ed, Paul, Blaine, Clive at ADO Restoration and all the people that have come in and dropped their heads in and helped us with little bits. We had Barbara bringing us fish and chips, we had Freddie and Jack coming to fit the roof rack, we've had the man upstairs coming in and helping with all sorts of things like getting the springs to fit and stuff, but most of all I would like to thank Cadbury's Dairy Milk, because this has kept so many of us going, along with Red Bull. Now I think we just need to get the springs on and crack on. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope by the time you see this video we have been at the NEC and we're having a lovely time. If this car is still dirty when I get to the NEC, don't even tell me that it's dirty, because it's just such a massive achievement to make it there, and I'm really excited that the team are going to be there on Friday as well. It's just so cool. Anyway, we're rambling on, we've got lots to do, it's nearly midnight and we have got 9 hours until the MOT. This is got more jeopardy in than a TV programme. Hope you've enjoyed this video. There's been some educational bits, been some fun bits, and I'm sorry if we skipped through a few bits, but look, we're running out of time. Right, that's it from us. Until next time, take care and drive safely.